Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of Rother's Licensing and General Purposes Committee. And we have here with us tonight, in addition to councillors, we have Richard Parker Harding, Head of Environmental Services, Licensing and Community Safety, and we also have Robert Cowan, our lawyer, welcome, and Louise Hollingsworth, who is our clerk for tonight. And of course, welcome also to anybody who's listening in remotely. The first item on the agenda is to authorise the minutes of the last committee meeting held on the 23rd of September last year. Do councillors agree? I shall therefore sign. Thank you. Item number 2, apologies and substitutes.
Apologies received from Councillor McGurk and the Chief Executive.
And I think we have a couple of councillors appearing remotely. Councillor McGurk, Councillor Kirby-Green, I see Councillor Thomas, Richard Thomas also. And is there a fourth person? Councillor McCourt also. Welcome to you all too. And as everybody knows, councillors appearing remotely may speak but not vote. Thank you. Additional agenda items, are there any?
There are none, Chair.
Disclosure of interests and dispensations. To receive any disclosures by members, any disclosures by members of disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests, non-registrable interests in matters on the agenda, and the nature of any interest and details of any dispensations obtained. Members are reminded of the need to repeat their declaration immediately prior to the commencement of the item in question. Are there any disclosures of interest? None? None. The first substantive item, item number 5, licensing fees and charges 2025 to 2026. And I call on Richard Parker Harding to introduce his report.
Thank you, Chair. This is the annual report which is made to this committee seeking members' approval to increase the discretionary licensing fees from the 1st of April 2025. I'm just remind members that we set licensing fees to recover our costs incurred. We should not be making a profit on the licensing fee income. Appendix A sets out the fees which are proposed to increase from the 1st of April. The fees which are going to increase are in red, so members can identify the fees which we're proposing to increase. Generally, they've been increased by the Consumer Price Index. I'll draw members' attention to the fees which we're proposing to set for the hiring of horses. Very unusually, these fees are actually proposed to go down. First time I remember fees going down in the last 30 years. And this is because this fee includes the veterinary costs. Every year we tender for the veterinary costs which are included in the licensing fee, and this year we've found a new vet who's actually will carry out the work for less than the previous vet, which means we'll actually be charging less. Just anything else you think I would probably, our Deputy Chief Executive and new Head of Finance will want me to say is that obviously in terms of financial income, it is important that the members are aware of reminded of the financial situation the council's in and the need to maintain income from licensing. And that's my introduction, Chair.
Well, thank you, Richard. Before we move on to discussion, I think we have Councillor Cooper appearing remotely. Do I see Councillor Cooper?
Yes.
Yes. Good evening, and sorry I didn't see you before. The screen in front of me isn't working.
Thank you, Councillor Min.
Well, councillors, does anyone have anything to say or questions for Richard on this topic? Councillor Field.
Thank you. Yes, I do understand Mr. Valence's position, and it's always good to see things reducing in cost. On the other hand, we do have a problem, and at some stage they're going to have to go up again. I wonder, do we have to reduce the cost?
At the moment, the bulk of the fee we're charging for the hiring of horses is the vet fee. I think we will be challenged if we don't reduce the fee, because we're actually, no, we're not, the fee at the moment includes the veterinary costs. The veterinary costs have come down, and therefore I think we're obliged to reduce our fees.
So could we argue that not reducing the fee but keeping it the same is actually a reduction because we haven't gone up in line with inflation?
I think the argument will be that the fee we charge at the moment includes the veterinary costs because the veterinary costs have come down. Therefore, we should reduce the fee by that amount.
I think, am I right in saying that we are only allowed to charge the amount which it costs us to administer the service?
Yes, that we're allowed to, we should be charging the amount to cost which administer the service and also enforcement of conditions attached to licensing. The issue always is that we're not allowed to charge for enforcement work connected with unauthorised activities which aren't licensed. That should be borne by the general council taxpayer.
So could I
Councillor Field
just
again.
clarify then, who monitors our administration costs? Clearly, somebody can monitor the cost of the vet because there'll be a contract. But our actual administration costs, which are clearly part of the fee, who monitors that and audits it?
The administration cost is calculated by looking at the number of officer hours which for each licence which we administer. So on our software system, we can record officer time, and that's how we calculate the administration cost. There's obviously then a fee applied for our overheads. So in terms of our obviously costs involved with IT, the cost of this building is included, is also added in as an overhead.
So there's no room for manoeuvre?
Very little.
Oh, right. Oh, Councillor Kirby Green, appearing remotely.
Yeah, just one question. Looking at the increases, the pavement licence increase seems to be quite significant from 214 to 300. So I just wondered whether Richard could explain why that's going up sort of disproportionately to everything else. Thank you.
Thank you. The pavement licences are relatively new licences. They were actually brought in after COVID as a means of trying to stimulate the local economy. Before that, all tables and chairs licences were issued by East Sussex County Council Highways, and those fees were significantly higher than the pavement licences which were brought in. Then the government decided that they sort of do away with the old highway licences issued by East Sussex County Council Highways, and pavement licences will become the norm. The government guidance is that we can charge up to £500 for pavement licences, which are for 2 years. Many local authorities have taken the option of setting their pavement licences fees at the maximum of £500. My advice is that would be unreasonable to jump from existing £214 to £500. So therefore, for this year, I'm proposing we go to £300, and then we'll gradually move within the lifetime of this authority to the maximum of £500. That's my suggestion, is we don't jump immediately to £500, but we move to £300, which is more of a reasonable fee over 2 years, given the amount of work which is involved in administering pavement licences.
Thank you.
Can I just ask something there? Is the pavement licence one then where Parliament has fixed £500 as a maximum?
Yes, the statutory £500 is the maximum we can charge.
And we've had relatively little experience of the cost of administering the service because it's quite new, only since COVID. Yes. Thank you. Are there... Councillor Thomas. You're muted, Richard.
Apologies. I'm just wondering, given that our room to manoeuvre in respect of these is so limited by government policy, and given that the government has been very reluctant to enable us to increase these for some 20 years, I wonder whether now we have a new government, I don't particularly see why the new government would continue with that policy of restricting us in the same way. It wouldn't necessarily cost the Exchequer, the central Exchequer, any money in order to relax the rules to give us a bit more leeway. And I'm wondering, therefore, what scope there is to making a further request to the government through maybe our Member of Parliament, maybe in conjunction with Wilden, maybe to the Local Government Association, to renew requests to see whether we can have some change in those restrictions on the licensing system. Would it be worthwhile, do you think, to make some kind of approach to see if the system can be modified to allow a little bit more flexibility? So that's my question. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, I think it would be worthwhile making representations to all those bodies you mentioned, to the Local Government Association, the District Councils Network. The licensing fees, particularly for under the Licensing Act 2003, they are now 20 years behind, and they should have been increased a long time ago. And some of the fees, mandatory fees under the Licensing Act 2003, do not meet our costs, and there is a need to increase those fees. So yes, I agree that we should make representations.
Could that be done via the Chief Executive?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
We can do that, yes.
That would be brilliant. Thank you very much for that answer. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Field.
Thank you. I was going to make, then, following on from Councillor Thomas's input, a formal proposition that we do that via the Chief Executive, and I would have thought also bolstered by the Chair of the Committee.
I think seconded by Councillor Stanger. I think this is something we can do. It's informal. It's not on the agenda, but I think it would be an informal recommendation. I'm informed that we can put that forward as a recommendation. Does anyone wish to speak to that proposition, or have we all heard enough? Silence. In which case, all those in favour? And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Well, thank you. And on the charges themselves, I think we can move to a vote. Do we accept the report? Those in favour? Oh, we need a proposer and a seconder.
Yeah, I propose.
Proposed by Councillor Stanger, seconded by Councillor Timpey. All those in favour? Unanimous again. I have to say just one observation there for anybody who's listening. It is extraordinary that the number of licences which Parliament requires us to administer here runs to 9 pages. 9 pages of licences. Amazing the number of things which are subject to licensing. Item number 6, the surveillance activity annual update and CCTV policy. Richard again.
Thank you, Chair. This is, as you said, an annual report which we are required to make. The Information Powers Commissioner requires us to make an annual report setting out what investigations were carried out using the RIPA legislation. And obviously for the last few years, or since 2015, our annual report has been to say that we have not carried out any covert surveillance which required a RIPA authorisation, which means that we have to apply to the Magistrates' Court for permission to carry out covert investigations. And so the last time we actually carried out any covert investigations was in 2015. But it's important that members are aware that, first of all, that officers are trained to know when they should be applying for a RIPA authorisation. Officers were all trained last year, and this year a few officers were additionally trained, but I carried out a survey of officers who do carry out investigations to ensure that they weren't falling into the trap of carrying out covert surveillance when they shouldn't be, and if they were carrying out covert surveillance, that they got the proper authorisation. The survey revealed that officers are not carrying out covert surveillance, and most importantly, they're not carrying out covert surveillance using investigations using social media, which was a new area which we had training on. And also there is a danger in officers falling into covert surveillance when using social media for investigations. Officers are allowed to go onto social media accounts which are publicly available to everyone to see, and they are allowed to get information from those sites. But what they mustn't do is then repeatedly going back to the same sites, regularly looking at those sites and getting information without really telling the person why you're doing it. Obviously, if you tell someone you're doing it, then it's no longer covert, it's overt. But officers shouldn't be doing that. And from the surveys which I've carried out, I'm quite reasonably confident that that's not happening. But the other thing I really always want to assure members is that although we're not carrying out covert surveillance, which requires a RIPA authorisation, that does not mean we're not carrying out enforcement work involving overt surveillance. Most of the work the council does is overt. We tell people that we're investigating them, and if officers are patrolling areas, carrying out their normal routine visits, that is not covert surveillance, that is overt. People know they're there, therefore it's not covert surveillance. And that's my report, Chair.
Sorry, that was me. And the CCTV policy as before and as set out in the report. Yes. Do councillors wish to speak? Yes, I think Councillor Cooper has her hand up.
Thank you, Councillor Mayor. It was just a query in terms of the data, in terms of the overt surveillance that you've done. Do we have that somewhere? Do members get a report of that? Do the public get a report of that? I've had a request from a parish councillor about the surveillance undertaken.
No, we wouldn't produce a report on what overt surveillance was carried out. I mean, there will be numerous officers in the council doing their normal duties are carrying out investigations which could be deemed to be overt surveillance. As I say, that anybody being investigated in that way would either normally know about it, or that they would know that the council was investigating them, or it would be something which, when someone is carrying out visiting a premises, they make themselves known that they are a council officer. So that information really is the thousands and thousands of investigations that the council undertakes in all departments, whether it would be investigations in council tax, investigations with environmental health and licensing, or investigations by planning enforcement. We don't sort of record centrally where those investigations are taking place.
So can the public not view that?
No, there's no central record of investigations carried out. I mean, we can obviously publish information about the number of complaints we receive, the number of food hygiene inspections we carry out, the number of licensing inspections we carry out, but there's no sort of central record of that in that way.
Thanks.
Presumably, officers keep files if they're carrying out an investigation in the course of their ordinary casework. There will be a file with
Yes.
details on it, and if it became appropriate at any stage to disclose that for any purpose, then it would be, but only if appropriate and only if lawful. Apparently, the answer is yes to that. Councillor Stenger.
Yeah, just want to say it's a vital tool, sorry it's a bit loud, vital tool in case of exceptional circumstances. I'd like to accept the officer's recommendation.
You're proposing? Is there a seconder? We have a seconder. Does anyone else wish to speak? No? In which case we go, no, but nobody else online? No, that's a legacy hand, I think. So those in favour of accepting the report? And that, again, is unanimous. And I think that concludes the business of the meeting. Oh, thank you, councillors. It is, I think, 8 minutes to 7. And